This is lesson 11.73, Change in Dimensions. Here, we will take a formula, change one of the parts of the formula, and see what effect that has on volume, surface area, or something else. Number 1. A pyramid's height is doubled. What effect does that have on the volume? First, let's take the formula for the volume of a pyramid. V equals 1/3 area of the base times height. If the height is doubled, this changes the formula to V equals 1/3 area of the base times 2 times the height. Now, we want to take the original formula and find it in what we have. Whatever is left should be moved out to the front. The 2 is extra, so it moves to the front. Since it's all multiplication, you can multiply in any order. So put the 2 in front, then 1/3 area of the base times height. Since 1/3 base times height became 2 times 1/3 base times height, then overall the volume is 2 times bigger. Number 2. The radius of a sphere is tripled. What effect does that have on the surface area? Well, if we're talking about the surface area of a sphere, let's write that formula. Surface area equals 4 pi r squared. If the radius is tripled, then we will change this to say surface area equals 4 pi times 3r squared. Now this change is inside an exponent, so we have to apply the exponent. Squaring 3r, you square the 3 and square the r. 3 squared is 9, r squared is r squared. Now, we need to find 4 pi r squared. The extra piece needs to move. Since it's all multiplication now, we can multiply in any order. Put the 9 in front, and it becomes 9 times 4 pi r squared. Since 4 pi r squared became 9 times 4 pi r squared, then the surface area is 9 times bigger. Number 3. A rectangular prism has the height doubled and the width quadrupled. What effect does that have on the volume? Well, we're talking about the volume of a rectangular prism, which has the formula V equals length times width times height. If I'm doubling the height and quadrupling the width, we can rewrite this. V equals length times 4 times the width times 2 times the height. Now, look for length, width, and height. Length, width, and height. It's all multiplication. The extra pieces 4 and 2 can be moved to the front. We can multiply 4 and 2 to get 8. So length times width times height became 8 times length times width times height. So the volume became 8 times bigger. Number 4. You have a horse in a fenced-in rectangular space. Because it has grown, the horse needs 3 times the area that it had before. How many times wider should you make the fence to accommodate the horse's needs? So we're talking about the area of a rectangle, which has the formula A equals length times width. We need this to be 3 times the size. So this means that the area needs to be 3 times length times width. If we're changing the width, and we can multiply in any order, we can take the 3 and apply it in front of the width to change this to say area equals length times 3 times the width. So this means that the width had to be 3 times the size. So the rectangular space will be 3 times wider. Number 5. The radius of a cylinder is cut in half. What effect does that have on the volume? So we're talking about the volume of a cylinder, which uses the formula V equals pi r squared h. If the radius is cut in half, let's replace r with 1/2 r. Since the 1/2 r is inside this exponent, let's apply the exponent. This will be 1/2 squared times r squared. 1/2 squared is 1/4. R squared is r squared. Now it's all multiplication. Pi r squared h and pi r squared h, the extra piece is the 1/4, which can be moved to the front of the formula. 1/4 times pi r squared h. Since pi r squared h became 1/4 times pi r squared h, then the volume is only 1/4 as big as it was before.